back to the Witch's Cauldron. My name is Paula, and today's video is the next in the Wicca 101 series. I have to apologize. I hadn't been able to get one of these videos up for a couple of weeks. I've been battling pneumonia, so I wasn't able to film at all. And please pardon my voice. I recorded one video a little bit earlier today, and my voice is still kind of crackly, so I apologize for that. Today's subject is the next in the magical spell crafting area, and the last video that I did was on spell crafting in general, and doing more with the full moon and things like that. And what I didn't really delve into is the subject of Dark Moon Magick and Shadow Magick, because a lot of Wiccans are afraid of what they consider, you know, the dark side. But to really be a complete person, you know, we believe in a balance of light and dark, okay? You know, the year is balanced out where light rules one half, the darkness rules the other half. The Oak King rules one half, the Holly King rules the other. So it's all the balance, you know, of the male and the female, the light, the dark, the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly. So for you as a person to evolve and really learn to love yourself, you have to also embrace what I call the shadow side. And there is a video that I'm going to link up here in the cards on specifically on Shadow Magick. And there is an accompanying meditation that goes with it that I will also link here in this card. And it's in the playlist in the bottom. The meditation is in the meditation playlist, and the Shadow Magick, I believe, is in the Wicca 101 playlist folder. So Dark Moon, the Dark Moon. A lot of Wiccans don't do anything to really acknowledge the Dark Moon. Most witches, however, take this time to do a couple of things, okay? This is an excellent time. The Dark Moon is a great time for you to do magic, to reinforce the wards and protections of your home, to do ritual cleansings of your home, to, from an introspective point, to do healing rituals. And I do it, how can I put this? If the healing involves having to especially detach some sort of entity or another magical practitioner who has kind of hexed you, this is a great time to reverse the curse. I'm going to flat out say it, reverse the curse. This is the night of the witch slap, as I say. There have been times in my life when I have had to issue a witch slap to another magical practitioner who overstepped their bounds with my energy and my being, or with the energy of a very dear friend of mine who is an extremely gifted psychic, and they were literally siphoning off her gift and stealing her clients. Using her own gift, and it was all because of a black magic ritual that someone had done on her. So that person had to get issued a witch slap from me to detach that spell from her and send it back where it came. And I'll get into this a little bit more in the next episode that's on magical ethics, because that's a fine line that we walk as magical practitioners, and that's why a lot of Wiccans, because they put so much weight in karma and the law of three, where a lot of witches don't ascribe to that. I say that I'm Wiccan, but I practice a version of hoodoo that is Southern Conjure. It's kind of an amalgamation of, Christian beliefs with, spiritual beliefs from other cultures, like especially mine, drawing heavily on Native American culture. But in the deep South of the United States, it draws very heavily on Afrocentric cultures. In other words, those cultures, they brought with them the magic they brought with them from Africa as slaves. So, it all depends on where your magical comfort is. But the dark moon is when I have done some of my most profound work. Number one, I am a big believer in protecting people that I love, protecting myself, protecting my home, my animals, things like that, and doing healing to get rid of things that are physically or mentally ailing me. Okay? And the dark moon is a perfect time to do that. It's also a time of introspection, and that's where shadow magic comes in. Shadow magic is looking at the side of you that is your shadow self. It is as much a part of you as your physical self is. It makes up what you are. It tells your story. But your shadow self are the things that you don't necessarily like about yourself. Shadow magic is all about taking a look at that part of you and fully embracing it. Because for you to be able to truly love and let go with somebody else, you have to learn to love yourself in the process. And a lot of us get caught up in that striving to be perfect, and shame of things that have happened in our past, where we need to embrace it and say, you know what, this helped form me who I am today. And I'm good today. I'm a much better person today than I was 20 years ago through my experiences, everything I've been through, things that I have learned, just that life experience has given me. So the shadow self part of you are those things that you put in that box and you put it on the shelf, and it's an experience that was very unpleasant, and you didn't fully deal with it or grieve or process whatever that event was and how it actually affected you. I go into a lot more detail in the Shadow Magic video, but mine was feeling like a failure because here I was a trained medical technician, and my father hemorrhaged to death in my arms. And I felt like a failure because I had revived, complete strangers and resuscitated people I didn't even know, and I couldn't save somebody in my own family. And then two, working where I worked, units from my department responded to the Pentagon on 9/11. I lost friends and in FDNY. And that was a very, very dark day in the fire service. So there were also events, around 9/11 for a lot of us in the fire service where we have what's called survivor's guilt, where we felt guilty because we survived, but our comrades fell. It's very common with people in the military. It's common with people who have been abused with post-traumatic stress disorder, things like that. So shadow magic is embracing that event and coming to peace with the fact that that event helped shape you as a person and that you're better now than you were without it. Okay. And it helps you process it. And the dark moon is a perfect time for shadow magic. Now, a lot of people are afraid. They're afraid of the dark goddess. They are afraid of dark goddesses and crone goddesses in general. I am in the crone phase of my life. I am, you know, postmenopausal. I like to think that I'm a lot wiser now on this side of 50 than I was on, you know, in my younger years on the other side of 50. And it took me a while to get to be at peace with the way that certain things evolved in my life. But I'm a lot wiser. I'm a lot smarter now than I was. And I like to think that when people see me who don't know me and bother to listen to what I have to say, they will see that I have something of value to say because of my experiences and my age and being in this phase of my life. I have a little bit of wisdom behind me. I always like to say, you know, my mother was one of the smartest women I've ever known, because she always said in everything in life, there is a lesson and a blessing inside. So that's one thing that I always remembered when I was doing Shadow Magick or working with one of the Dark Goddesses or one of the Crone Goddesses. Now, some of... And the crone should never ever be feared because she is part, death is a part of life. You have to die so that you're reborn into another life. Okay? The end of this physical being, this vessel, is not the end of my soul. My soul transcends and goes on into the afterlife. And then it comes back. Those are my beliefs. The Crone Goddesses that I typically work with. Usually when you mention a crone goddess, the very first one that people think of is Hecate. And she was the goddess of the underworld, Greek goddess of the underworld and magic. She is the goddess of the crossroads. Okay, so if you have, especially like in a really important decision, you're at a crossroads at your life, you don't know what to do, work with Hecate. She'll show you the way that you need to go. It may not be the way you particularly want to go, but she will show you the way. Another that scares people to death, and she's actually a dark goddess, is Kali. And Kali is the Indian goddess of destruction and rebirth. She is that blue goddess with the tongue sticking out, blood dripping out of her mouth. She's got 6 arms. She's very, very menacing looking. However, she's not only the goddess of destruction, because sometimes you have to raise everything to bring something up behind it that's even better, which is the rebirth. She is also a fierce protector of children and bringing those who do wrong to children to justice. Okay? One of the most effective rituals I ever did was with the goddess Kali in her dark goddess, warrior goddess phase. And it was to do with protecting a child. I found out that this child's father, while, you know, the mother was at work, working night shift as a nurse, the child's father put the child in the car with him and went to go buy heroin with the kid in the car repeatedly. And then came home and shot up and was smoking and nodded off and almost burnt the house down with the baby in the house. You know, I don't care if he burned his fool ass self up. But, you know, the baby was only 3 or 4 months old at the time. And smoke can take a small infant out in, you know, a heartbeat, literally. And especially a smoldering fire of like a sofa or a chair. That foam gives off really noxious chemicals when it burns. So when I found out about that, I was so livid. I was absolutely incensed. One thing you need to remember when you're doing anything considering dark magic is don't do it when you're angry. I had to wait till I calmed down and thought about it a little bit. And then that passion and that anger was focused into writing that ritual and bonding with Kali, that protector face of Kali in that magic, okay? That child's father ended up getting arrested, I want to say like 5 times in the next several months for driving under the influence. The final time he was arrested out in like a country county in Goochland County, Virginia. And he had typically been arrested in the city of Richmond. The city of Richmond had too many drug-related arrests. They didn't keep, people in jail very long for, drug-related, drug possession charges, DUI charges, anything like that. It was like a revolving door. But when he did it out in Goochland County, that judge literally lowered the boom on him, and he ended up doing 22 months in the state prison on his 5th DUI that he had gotten. So, and he ended up eventually, even after he came out, after being clean all that time in jail, he fell back into his own ways, and eventually, unfortunately, he overdosed and passed on. God rest his soul. I don't wish that on anybody. But he never did any drug sinking with his child in the car again. And I didn't direct that spell at him. I directed it to anyone, to have Kali bring the light of justice to anyone who put that child in harm's way. And as a matter of fact, her mother was arrested for a DUI in the same period of time. She was smart enough to not do it again. And the child was in the car with her. So, I didn't direct it to any one specific person. That's why I didn't have a problem doing it. And the people who needed a kick in the teeth from the divine received it, and received it in spades. And I have Kali to thank for that, because she is a fierce protector of children, and bringing justice to light, bringing light to people who are wrongdoers and making it out. Now, another goddess that, a lot of people, Crone Goddess, that a lot of people work with is Caradwen. And, Caradwen is the inspiration for this channel, because she is the keeper of the cauldron, and all the knowledge and the wisdom that goes with it. She is the wisdom of old age, okay? One that I work with in the winter from Samhain until, you can go to Beltane, but I usually stop around Ostara-ish, is the Kaliak. And the Kaliak is the winter hag of Celtic pantheon, and she's a destroyer goddess who ruled over disease, death, wisdom, seasonal rites, and weather magic. So you think of it like a nor'easter that we get here in the United States, where it's the blowing winds and the really rough, bitter weather. That's the Kaliak. She is not one to be trifled with, but she's wonderful for helping you transform, especially where you're breaking bad habits that affect your health. So in other words, like smoking or overeating or, indiscriminate sex, etc., etc. She is really good at helping you break those bad habits, okay? She can be a little bit difficult to work with, but once you show your respect and you honor her the way she needs to be honored and not feared, she's a wonderful goddess to work with. Another one that some work with that scares the bejesus most magical practitioners is Lilith. And I am talking about Lilith, who was Adam's first wife. Now, many people, especially Judeo-Christian beliefs, say that she's the mother of demons. Okay, and Lilith is also associated with incubi and succubi. Those are supposed to be her children, and the mother of vampires. So what she is, though, is she is the woman who denied God's rules, and she was cast out of the Garden of Eden because she refused to allow Adam to dominate her. Okay, so she was kicked out for that. Okay, many magical practitioners now work with her as like the goddess of wild freedom, for equality, liberation, but also of passions and pleasure. So it depends on how you look at this, whether it's dark or not. I issue a cautionary tale to working with this particular goddess, because she can be very, very tricky to work with. She is not one that I trifle with personally, but it all depends on who you are. Another one is the goddess Maeve, or M-E-D-B, Maeve. That's how it's pronounced in Gaelic. And she's the goddess of intoxication, war, and indulgence. So if you are asking her to help you fight overindulgence, she can help you do it. Okay. Now, she was known to have a very bad temper and a lustful appetite. She is also thought to be one of the fairy folk, in other words, the fae. So she is also the Queen of Connacht. She is associated with fertility. So this is another one that you have to be very respectful when dealing with her, because literally, I mean, in Celtic mythology, Maeve basically screwed her opposing army to death. I mean, that was the thing of lust. So, I mean, you know, if you do not pay her proper homage and respect, you can expect probably some sexual addiction problems to come your way. So be very, very respectful of dealing with her. The Morgan is another one. She's the Celtic goddess of war. And she's also accompanied by crows, and she's usually depicted on a battlefield. She's the goddess of war, destruction, death, and transformation. And she was also a shapeshifter. She was known to be able to shift, excuse me, into various animals at will, like the crow, the bull, the eel, the wolf, and more. So she is the daughter of one of the Tuatha De Danann, which are the first divine gods of Ireland. She foretells warriors' death before they happen, and she's the goddess that protects the king. She is associated as an ancient earth goddess. And you have to remember that out of destruction and chaos comes new birth. Okay, and she is a goddess of transformation, so she is another one that is good. If you are wanting to do deep shadow magic and transform yourself and change bad habits, you know, and she's also a great protective goddess. Great. Another one is the goddess, Egyptian goddess Sekhmet, who is the goddess of wrath. She was there to protect the pharaoh from enemies. She is basically got the body of a woman and the head of a lion. You know, she's not going to take any crap. Red was her color, the color of blood. She was said to be the daughter of the Egyptian sun god Ra, and she would, at times of war, ravage the battlefield and tear apart anyone that's in her path. On the opposite end, though, Sekhmet is the goddess of healing. So she is particularly good if you need to do deep healing and transformation. Okay, she's a really good goddess if you need to do a deep, like, auric cleanse of your body, of your aura, to really clear and balance, you know, your energy centers in your body. Sekhmet is a wonderful one to work with. The dark magic rituals that you write are just like the spells that you write for the full moon. You need to be just as diligent, you know. Look at the timing of the days. Look at the timing of the month, you know, the dark moon. Is it, you know, what is the purpose? What is the intent of what you're asking a crone or dark goddess to do to help you with? If you're banishing or binding or hexing somebody, you know, you probably want to call Cerridwen to help you. You know, if you need to make a decision, if you're at a crossroads in your life, then Hecate is your woman. If you need protection, especially of children, Kali. Again, it's all about determining the intent, what your final outcome is going to be, and then working your spell backwards from that. Okay? When does the dark moon fall? What day of the week does it fall on? What are the correspondences for that day? On your altar, you know, usually with working with the dark goddess and banishing, you know, stuff like that, you usually, like, especially if you're banishing a disease, you want to use black. But there are other, you know, herbs. Look them up in your correspondences. What herbs go with healing? Does that particular goddess have specific herbs associated with her? And at the end of this, I will, well, actually, I'll do it right here. I will link a video on the god and the goddess, and that'll go over some of the various phases of the goddess and some of the correspondences that go with some of the goddesses that I have mentioned. At some point in your spell casting, you seriously want to invest in a good correspondence. Llewellyn's Complete Book of Correspondences is one of the best ones, as is Holland's Grimoire of Magical Correspondences. You can get those both on Amazon. The Holland's one, I do not know if it is back in print now. I do know that Amazon had some new copies the last time that I went on there, so it may be back in print. But those two books are worth every dime, and mine are so dog-eared and well-loved because I use them incessantly. They have become another, you know, part of me when I'm really wanting to research, especially when you're doing something like shadow work. You want to be very, very deliberate. and pick correspondences that actually speak to you. I want to say that you should not be afraid of dark magic. I'm not saying black magic. I'm saying dark magic, which is the Dark Moon Magick, or of Shadow Magick. Okay? Because as I said at the beginning, there has to be balance. Light, dark, good, bad, you know, the whole 9 yards. So your dark side, your shadow side is as much as part of you as all the light. You know, I like to say to some of my students, life is not unicorns farting out glitter as they go through, you know, down the street. It just doesn't work like that. And if that's the way that you think of Wicca and witchcraft, you're missing a big part of the craft. You have to embrace the good with the bad, the light with the dark. And I'm not saying, you know, respect those entities that may be evil, and learn about them so that you know how to protect yourself from them. Because as a child of the light, you can be, you know, a beacon for any number of entities from the dark. So, you know, you have to know the dark to be able to fight it. Okay. So with that said, my friends, I hope this helped you a little bit. There are handouts that I have linked in the description box that will give you a little bit better, more in depth. You know, feel free to, I think I've got the permissions set where you can print them out. But like I said, the main thing is not to be afraid of dark moon work where you're banishing or binding or doing shadow work and introspection on yourself. Don't be afraid of it, because leaving that out of your magical practice is just as much of trying to go through life outside in the bright sunshine and not cast a shadow on the ground at all. That shadow and that dark side is a part of you. Do not turn your back on it, okay? Because you will become so much more powerful practitioner of magic when you embrace the fact that everyone has a shadow side. We have a darker side to us and to our personalities. And rather than to deny that and put the face on that everything are literally unicorns farting out glitter, we're doing a disservice to ourselves. And we're not tapping into an energy that can help us raise energy and focus intent for a good purpose, like healing, transformation, dealing with substance abuse, protecting children, protecting your home, healing yourself. Let's say you were a child of, you know, molestation or abuse. That dark side, that shadow work can help you heal those wounds that have been there for decades and decades. And the sooner that you develop a relationship with your shadow self, with the darker side of you, and develop the relationships with Crone Goddesses, with learning the Mother Goddess, with learning a Maiden Goddess, especially, you know, when it comes to healing old emotional traumas. Shadow work and dark moon work can do wonders, helping you process, embrace, heal, transform, grieve, and deal and grow and be reborn out of that hurt and be reborn a new person out of that experience. Okay? That's the main thing to take forward. As I said earlier, my mother always said, there's a lesson and a blessing in everything, good and bad. Open your eyes and your heart to find it. Okay? With that, my friends, that's it for this week. Next week's edition will be on magical ethics. I'll go a little bit more into that, and hopefully we can have a meaningful discussion about that. And until we meet again, my friends, merry we did meet, merry we will part. Until we merry meet again, be well and walk in love and light, everybody.